First couple of days, they didn't let us sleep, kind of break you down so you're
Oh, really?
more open. And he said that's just a technique. I think what boot camp did for me was it really taught me teamwork, because every stage of boot camp, it wasn't an individual task. We all had to do it together. And if one messed up, we all paid for it. So I think along the way, it taught us teamwork, and it taught us to take care of each other.
Could you do me a massive favor and click follow or subscribe button? It helps the podcast out so much. Welcome back to another episode of Making Contain. So I'm joined by Keith. Would you like to do a bit of introduction to yourself to the listeners?
Sure. Keith Norman would be my name. I live in Vegas. I was chef here in Vegas. Here at the hotel, South Point Hotel Casino. I have several titles here. You can't just do one thing, but been here over 30 years, been with this company I'm in my 24th year now with Mr. Gone. He's our owner. So 24 years with him, but been in town over 30 years. So.
No, it's incredible to have you on the podcast. I actually came across you on LinkedIn, out of all places.
Yeah.
I don't know, I come across your profile. I think I was like, obviously, someone in the kind of the allergy space obviously might have like shared a post, or I kind of saw you commented on a post. So no, it's incredible to obviously get you on the podcast today. I think with the guests, I always love, obviously, kind of before we kind of jump into it, is like kind of delving into kind of like your upbringing and obviously doing like research about yourself. Like the one thing what kind of stood out to me was like you kind of spoke about your grandmother and kind of the influence she had on you. Was you brought up by your grandmother at a young age?
Yeah. So, first of all, Dan, I don't believe in, everything happens for a reason. So our paths didn't just cross. So, but my maternal mom, passed when I was 4 years old. So my grandmother on my dad's side, took me and my younger brother and raised us. He was 3, I was 4. So, we all called her Big Mom, but what was really interesting, is we were always in the kitchen with her, and holidays, were always a big thing with her. And so my brother and I, we were always in the kitchen, and, at different points, she let us, kind of be involved. But as she started to get older, there was things, those Thanksgiving dinners when all the family is coming and you have 3 turkeys that, are now getting tough for her to, pick up. My brother and I got more involved in cooking, and then our very first Thanksgiving, where she said we had an island where she sat on the end, and, just kind of, like the hawk, watching what we did. And back then we didn't use measuring spoons and stuff. It was a pinch of that, so she was amazing. And, when I was in high school, there was Mrs. Lockard. So my grandmother and Mrs. Lockard ran our food service program, and I just, getting the passion for my grandmother, because she always cooked with love. And then Mrs. Lockard kind of brought that, that guest service aspect, to the whole, pie, where, serving others is an honor, and serving others is, one of those things that you also have to do with passion. So now you put both of those together, and, you have what we have today, and, a passion for, just making sure that those, when you mention allergens, one of my, passions is making sure that all of those, out there, have a place at the table.
Yeah. Sorry to hear about your mum as well. Obviously, I wasn't aware of that. And I mean, like growing up, did you have a very kind of close bond with your brother as well?
Yeah, actually, there were 10 of us. So there was,
oh, wow.
Yeah, six boys, 4 girls, and we all were very close knit. But yes, my younger brother Lonnie, we were born in pairs. So Lonnie and I, we are 1 year apart, and then next set, But yeah, I mean, we did everything together. When I got in trouble, he got spanked too. So those one of those relationships that kind of grew. But all of my brothers and sisters, we've always been close. But when you have that, for lack of a better, twin. Because like I said, we did everything together, grew up together, went to school together, everything. But yeah, so we're all really, really close.
You mentioned that
No.
obviously you was like cooking with your brother. Is that something he's very passionate about as well then?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Actually, there's four chefs in the family. So, you
Oh
know,
wow. I didn't, yeah.
yeah, my two older brothers, myself, and my younger brother, and we don't get an opportunity other than when I was just home last weekend for just to go in and see family, and we were all my brother, older brother, right over me, had four grills going, because we had
Yeah.
over 100 people coming, so my younger brother's on one grill, and my older brother's on one grill, and I'm on one grill. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's really an honor to be around them and just kind of be able to see them in action, and just yeah. So it's pretty cool.
You sound like a really kind of like close knit family then. You kind of mentioned as your grandmother got older, did everyone have to kind of pull the weight, and obviously
Yeah,
like you was helping out in the kitchen as well then?
yeah, oh yeah. No. I mean, she's just I mean, we had years together. I mean, from 4 to 18, and most of the time when she was in the kitchen, there was always some chopping to do. So, we
Yeah.
would be doing the chopping while she's doing the big stuff. And yeah, and I guess you might see this with your parents, as they get older, unfortunately there's things they can't do. And, I was honored. My brother as well was honored to be able to step in. And, we used to, when we grew up, the Jiffy mix, she used to always love the Jiffy mix. And, those were those days when you go in there, drop some milk and an egg in a bowl, whip it up and bake it
Yeah.
and bring it to her. So yeah, those were the days. I enjoyed growing up in that environment.
How was did she have like any kind of like go-to kind of recipes? And for example, if you cook it today, it kind of brings back the memories. Was it a dish or a dessert or like a cooking which kind of reminds you of kind of the work you do now?
Well, growing up on welfare and not having access to many things, what I always thought was fascinating, was if it's meatloaf today, it's another name tomorrow. So
Yeah.
my grandmother was really creative, and I try to do that, as well. She was very creative at making, if it was pasta today, it's going to be pasta something else tomorrow.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I think holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas, 4th of July, those were holidays where we knew the whole family was coming together, family and friends. So I think those are the holidays that remind me of Big Ma and the things that we used to do. Because I knew for 4th of July, my uncle was bringing 6 cases of ribs that my brother and I were now old enough to
Yeah.
kind of put on the grill and handle. So yeah, so I think those are the 3 holidays that just kind of stand out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then would you say from a young age you always knew that you was going to be a chef, or was that something which kind of came a bit later on?
Um, well, I think what happened, I didn't think, I knew I'd always be doing something in the field, but I think when I went into the Marine Corps and, you know, a couple of duty stations where I was at, where you were just feeding in masses, right? That kind of, when you think about poetry in motion, and you're cooking for 5,000 Marines and service folks, and you just see how smooth that could be, that
Yeah.
just kind of, that whole catering and banquet kind of setting just kind of reached out and touched me. But coming out of the Marine Corps and coming to Vegas and just seeing, the different opportunities that presented themselves, I think that's what really kind of threw me into, wanting to just pursue the field,
Yeah.
as a chef.
And then I think at the age of 18, obviously you went to the Marines. I mean, if we
Yeah.
kind of talk about that experience, I'd love to kind of learn about that experience for you, obviously being in the military and kind of the life lessons you probably learned while she was there as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we growing up, like my kids, my daughter, she played pro basketball, but as a college player and a high school player, they were always traveling around the country. But I grew up pretty stationary. We didn't travel. We went from our house to the neighbor's house. So I didn't get a worldly experience, as a teen.
Yeah.
So when I left home, I remember the day I came back from signing up, and unfortunately it was an all-day process. Didn't tell my grandmother I was doing it, but I
Oh,
remember
really?
walking down. We had a long driveway, and I remember walking down the driveway, and I got to the door, and it was a screen door, and she looked out the door and she said, "You signed up, didn't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I did."
She
And
knew, yeah.
yeah, she knew. And then so I graduated. Then the next day I was on a bus. So, but I think for me it was really culture shock because I had never been away from home on my own at all. And boot camp was really great. I went on a buddy system, so I had two friends that grew up with me that was there. So we kind of supported each other. But I think the 13 weeks that of boot camp just kind of took you from being that young punk kind of mentality.
Yeah, yeah.
This is kind of real. And then when I got out, when I got out,
Was it quite tough? I was going to say the boot camp. Like, what did it kind of entail?
yeah, I think the first couple of days, and my uncle explained this to me because I didn't understand it. But the first couple of days, they didn't let us sleep. Kind of break you down so you're
Oh,
more
really?
you're
Yeah,
more open. And he said that's just a technique. But I think what it did for me, and keep in mind, coming from close knit family, and really the village raised the child. So where I grew up, we were all very very close. We fought like cats and dogs, but we were friends the next day. But I think what boot camp did for me was it really taught me teamwork, because every stage of boot camp, it wasn't an individual task. We all had to do it together. And if one messed up, we all paid for it. So I think along the way, it taught us teamwork, and it taught us to take care of each other. And when you go from first, second, third, and fourth week of, really the Marine Corps, kind of getting us from rough to rough and ready. A
yeah,
lot,
yeah.
a lot of physical training, a lot of, discipline, meaning, when we would watch a movie, we might sit for 2 hours Indian style, but there was a purpose to it. And then when you get to the seventh and eighth week, when our drill instructors start to see that we're coming together as a team, when we're in formation and we're marching as a team. And then, you start to feel that title Marine. And then you get to your last, weeks where, you're wearing the uniform
Yeah.
and you're being called, we're still recruits though, but we started to feel like a Marine. And then when I got out, first duty station, I'm out there and I'm on my own. And I was at Cherry Point, North Carolina for a year. And that kind of got me introduced to the Marine Corps. And then I was shipped to Hawaii for 3.5 years. So, but I think the big difference for me was I came from not traveling to being able to see things that today I probably wouldn't be able to see. So definitely teaches you leadership, teamwork. You never leave a man behind it. And if you're busy, I'm busy too, because I'm there
Yeah.
supporting you.
Was it quite tough being 18, that kind of mental headspace? Obviously, you've moved away from home, and now obviously the lack of sleep. Do you have to be quite tough in that aspect, would you say?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the buddy system helped me in boot camp because, again, the three of us, we had never been away from home. So I think that helped us. But I think I'm cut from good cloth, and
Mm.
I don't say that arrogantly, but I say that I had a really strict and disciplined upbringing. I mean, my grandparents were, disciplinarians. My parents were as well, and I think and I think my brothers and sisters would say the same thing. Our parents and grandparents taught us discipline and standards, and you give your best. And my grandfather, on my mother's side, and he and I were like two peas in a pod. Every time he would see me, he would always ask me, "How's your conduct?" So no pressure, but I never wanted to disappoint him. And
Mm.
and so everything that I've done and I do. I always tell my kids that. He used to always say that, regardless of where we were, how's your conduct? And again, never wanted to disappoint him. So everything that I've accomplished and done in life, I've done that, kind of with that in mind.
Yeah, I think the environment of where you get brought up has a massive, I think,
Yeah.
impact, later down the line. And I mean, my parents, they come from like really rough estates in Manchester. And when I was born, like they wanted to take me out of that context. So we moved away from Manchester and moved to the outskirts
Yeah.
in a nice house or a nice estate. And I think having where you brought up, that environment, I think makes a massive part. Would you
Yeah.
say that with your own experience and obviously with the family and around you at the time?
Oh yeah. Oh no, absolutely. I mean, like I said, growing up, Chagrin Falls is where I grew up. Very small, place, but and my kids laugh at me, but if I was at your house and I got in trouble, your mom and dad's probably going to spank me. And by the time I
Oh,
get back
really?
to my
Yeah.
house, you've already made that phone call. So that's two spankings. And, I mean, I know those aren't things that a lot of folks think is right today, but I just believe that we were taught to be tough. When we would go out, like my older brothers and the big boys, we used to like to call, they would catch us and beat us up all the time. And when we were playing sports, they didn't take it easy on us.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I think growing up, there was a little saying, if you fell down and got hurt, parents would say, get up and try it again. It wasn't,
Yeah.
run to the clinic and things like that. But I think that really helped me because after boot camp, I was out on my own. My other two friends, they went to their duty stations and I was out on my own. So, and again, I had never been out on my own, never managed money, never had to, support myself, and those are things that I learned. But the beauty is the Marine Corps was very good at helping us, learn those things. So it wasn't like, okay, now you're out of boot camp and you're out there on your own. So my duty station, when I got there, my boss was very supportive. And, just like my boss here in Vegas, where he moved, I moved, same thing in the Marine Corps. I was fortunate, one of my first bosses, I was able, to travel with him. So we wound up being at several duty stations together. But no, I think if I would have had a different upbringing, maybe my experience in the Marine Corps would have been different, being away from home on my own. Oh my God, what are you going to do? But no, I think the toughness that parents and friends and brothers and sisters, kind of instilled in me was a plus.
No, that's amazing to hear. In regards to obviously like the military, did you started off as chef and then 2 years in you went to frontline? Can we
Yeah,
talk about that kind of journey and how that kind of
yeah.
opened up and happened? Like,
I had three brothers above me that went into Marine Corps first, and I followed them. But sometimes when you're looking at military occupational specialties or MOS, you're looking at things that kind of stand out, and food service was one that stood out. And when I got in there, great experience. But when I got to Hawaii, the battalion that I was in, they were short on infantry, so they were actually looking
oh, okay.
for infantry. And my good friend Richard Martin, I always remind him of this. He said, "Why don't we try it with something different?" And not knowing what we're going to get ourselves into, but we did. And I tell you, it was one of the most. It was tough, right? Because I was attached to a recon unit, and I hate water. And in Hawaii, there's sharks in the water, so I even hated it
Oh,
more.
okay.
But
Yeah.
everything they did, I did. They built, because I was in shape when I went in. I was in better shape when I came out of boot camp, but they were teaching me to do things I really would never ever have done. So that was pretty cool. And then I was able to come back into the cook field and finish out my career in the Marine Corps. So I did 10 years, 8 years active, 2 years reserve, but I was able to come back into the food field and, just kind of take that up a notch, which was,
Yeah.
really, really cool. But I think just, because a lot of times, and I don't say it's disrespectfully, but a lot of times you look at MOSs and you look at, well, that seems easy, right? And I think in my era in the 60s and 70s, we went into the Marine Corps. I went in because three brothers were in. I'm thinking, well, wow, they thought it was pretty cool. I
Yeah,
think it's
why
pretty cool.
shouldn't? Yeah, yeah,
Not knowing what I was going to get myself into. But, it's just like now, we, whenever I go home, I take, so this is our new hat. So every time I go home, I look online and I find a Marine Corps hat and
yeah.
I buy them and I go home and then
Amazing.
we all sport them. So we have that kind of, relationship
Yeah,
now where we share. But I just think, some of the things that you've asked me, just watching my brothers when they went in and they, because I followed what they were doing. And when I went in, I was stationed with my older brother at Cherry Point, North Carolina for just a short period of time. But, just kind of watching them. And when they came home in that uniform, was like, wow,
yeah,
they're really
impressed.
old.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that
Did
helped.
you? I can imagine you made some like lifelong friends there. Obviously, going through all the ups and downs, and like
Yeah.
obviously being on the front line. Do you still in touch with a few of the guys today?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
There's several friends. Actually, there's several friends in California that I keep in contact with. Yeah, I mean, I've lost contact with a lot of really, great friends, but there are a few. I mean, my two of my bosses, I still keep in touch with, so that's really cool.
yeah. How was it then, like leaving? Because I know, like some people could probably struggle, having so much routine for a long period of your life. How was that kind of adjusting to that when you got back into the real world?
Well, coming here to Vegas, I mean, it was hard when I first got here in '88. Took me a while to find a job. I mean, I think one of the hardest things for most veterans, I think, is, we had a pact. Even though we did things under orders, I knew that you and I were going to march to the same beat, right? Then getting out, my biggest adjustment was realizing that the person next to me hasn't done what I've done. So my expectations, I think the biggest lesson was meeting everyone where they're at, because not everyone
Mm.
has been in any of the branches of the service. So when you think about, I've never missed a day of work. The only day I've missed, was when my son was born and I had to leave
Yeah,
work. But just having that discipline, I guess for lack of better, that's what I missed, knowing that, if I gave someone a directive, I know that's going to be followed without attitude, so just kind of adjusting to, that, those that I'm working with now don't come from, the background that I do. But for me, it wasn't a hard transition. I think after a year or two, I started missing the Marine Corps and the things that I used to do. But, over time, you just kind of, just like I had to conform to things I learned there, same thing when I
mm.
got out. It was just a different set of rules, and you kind of fall into play. But the great thing is the leadership, the discipline, and all those things that were instilled, they're still there.
Yeah. I can imagine all them skills you kind of learned now kind of plays a big part in obviously being a chef and obviously the kind
Yeah.
of obviously allergies and kind of like
Yeah.
making
Yeah.
sure that everything's safe. Was your first job out of Vegas? Was that a chef? You got a role as a chef in? Is it part of a casino? Is that correct?
Yeah, so Bally's was Chef Warner, and I stay in touch with him to this day. I probably put in, so a union town. So in order to go to, so I applied at Caesar's, Tropicana. I applied at a lot of the big places, but you had to get a union referral. So I'd go to Union House, get the referral, go out. So, yeah, I probably put in 30 or more applications, and unfortunately, nobody made the call. And I remember my interview at Bally's, and Miss Diane was Chef Warner's secretary. And when I interviewed, she said, well, there's nothing available now, but when something becomes available, we'll call. And a week or so passed, and I picked the phone up and I called and I said, Miss Diane, this is Keith, just checking. She says, we don't have anything now, but we'll let you know. And maybe 2 days later, she called me and she said, the chef will see you. And so I go, and Miss Diane's office was here and chef's office was behind hers. And I'm going to mimic him real quick. But when I came in, his toque, it was like cocked to the side, right? I think he's either English or Swedish, but he's Orient or I forget what his nationality is. But I came in and his chef's hat was to the side, and I sat down with him, and he went through my application, and he asked me about my Marine Corps experience and things like that. And he looked at me and he said, well, we're going to start you tonight on Graveyard, which was really cool. So I started that night, and I worked at Bally's for 1 year, and then the Mirage opened, and Chef Warner was kind enough to give my name to another good friend of mine, Chef Ken. And so I moved on to Mirage. But what's interesting, Chef Warner told me after my book came out and Chef Warner was in town, and I gave him an autographed copy and we were talking. He said, do you know why I hired you? And I said, well, no, but I'm glad you did. And he said, when I worked in Jersey, this is Chef Warner, he said, there was a Marine that worked for me. He was never late, no attitude, very disciplined, hard worker. And he said, I saw that in you. I said, well,
amazing.
I appreciate it. Thank you. But 20 years later, you could have told me this before. But yeah, Chef Warner gave me my first start here. And then I was able to move on to Mirage, Treasure Island. I opened, I was in banquets in MGM when they opened. Then I opened the Paris Hotel. And then I went to the last hotel that I opened was Suncoast, and that's the family that I'm in now. And again, Chef Ken, my old boss, reached out and said, you want to do lunch? So I'm going to give you a lesson here. If your old boss calls you and says you want to do lunch, and you walk into the restaurant and he has a briefcase, he's going to offer you a job. So
no, that's incredible. How was your? Could I ask about your relationship with allergies? Obviously, you've got the book as well. Can we talk about, obviously you got diagnosed with an allergy to olives. Can we talk about that kind of whole story and how that obviously has led pretty much into being a chef today?
Yeah, sure. No, if you remember the cocktail olives in a little skinny jar, I used to eat those like crazy. So I started, my first experience was drooling. Didn't think anything of it because I didn't know what an allergen was. I grew up around asthma, right? So I didn't know. And so I kept eating them. And then it went from drooling to like my lips swelling. And then again, I didn't know what it was. I didn't go for a diagnosis. Yeah. So I didn't get a diagnosis. So I said, well, I'm just going to stop eating them, which I did. And then, olive oil and things like that never bothered me. And then later on, I tried it again. And again, I wasn't aware of what allergies were. I tried it again. Same thing happened. So again, like not most, but like a lot of people, you just stop eating what's making you go cuckoo.
Yeah, making you feel itchy or like, because I think even like back in the 80s or 90s, like allergies obviously nowhere near what they are now as common, and obviously lack of awareness back then as well. So like you said, you probably wouldn't even realize that.
Didn't know what it was. And you ask someone, they look at you like you had 4 heads. So I just stopped doing it. And so fast forwarding, all of the casinos that I've worked at here in town have introduced me to allergens, but on a smaller scale. So I think, say 2010 to now, I think allergen guests are not afraid to tell us. I think a lot of allergen guests are coming out, and making their allergens known. And that's how it happened for us. So here 2009, we had a couple of families in our steakhouse that had allergens. And again, we were doing things on a small scale. And I was introduced to the Gordon family, who actually wrote the foreword for my book. And the two boys had multiple allergens. And, I went back to the kitchen and worked with the chef, and, based on information they had given us, that we served them safely. And the next year they invited me to speak at it used to be FAN, if you remember way back then. It was FAN, it's FAIR now, but they asked me to do a presentation. I did, and I just met some amazing youngsters that I keep in touch with to this day. And we did a panel, and just listening to those stories, it just breaks your heart. And I just knew that we needed to be better, and we could be better, and we should. And I took it as it's an obligation. It's my responsibility. And so I came back, and we started to put SOPs into place. That started with training. I took everybody off the floor, all management first, and did training and introduction to what food allergies were, and then we did the same thing with the team. And then I just started to put procedures in place, right? So if you think about and the Gordon family, we did I think we did 3 allergen walks here in town. We've done 4 allergen conferences here at the hotel.
Amazing.
And I think that was one of the biggest advantages for me, and to propel us to where we've come. So, but yeah, that was really the journey. Meeting those families and just really looking at those kids. I mean, and you look at a baby, and we just had 3 guests here yesterday. All 3 babies. One's 21, one's 17, one's 13, and multiple allergens. But when you see them sitting there eating this meal, and that was the motivation really over the years, see those babies that can, come out, that deserve a place at the table.
Yeah, it's so important. Do you feel sometimes there's like a lack of communication with sometimes when someone goes to a restaurant, they don't always feel confident? What advice or what tips would you give to them people? Because obviously it's so important with your job as well, because obviously keeping them safe, but it's also their job as well to make you aware.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think do your research. I mean, my email is on our website. I get a lot of folks who reach out to me, so that's a plus. But I would say that if you're going to a restaurant, go online, look at the menus, make the phone call first, so you feel, ask to speak to the chef. We train the same way here, so you could talk to a chef or a manager, and you'll get the same answers. Though the chef is going to know the menu better than a manager, but still, we're going to be able to talk you through things, and very rarely do I have to turn anybody away. But I think for the guests coming into the restaurant, you have to feel comfortable, so you have to ask questions. But it's important that a guest I need all the information, right? And one of the things that we don't, don't tell me that a little bit won't hurt you, or you can have a little bit of that, because we're not going to give it to you, right? But I think if you do the research ahead of time, look at the menus, be aware, because the families that came yesterday, mom gave me a complete list of things that the kids were interested in eating, and we vetted that before they came. So, that's possible. And the other thing I would say to families that are going into a restaurant, it's daunting but doable. So when you go to a place, if they truly, truly want to serve you safely, they can. There's no, we do 10,000 meals a month here, right? So we have 11 restaurants, so we're always busy. But for the allergen guests, it takes me 10 extra minutes to safely, prepare that meal. Yeah. So I would say to that family going out, you got to listen. So when you say to me that you have peanuts, trinas, shellfish, fish, just look at the face. The face is going to tell you whether they're welcoming you or they're thinking you're an inconvenience.
Yeah, I've always been like a big advocate is like you've just got to go with that gut feeling, and if
Yeah.
you feel like they're not going to take it seriously, then it's definitely not worth that risk. What's
Yeah.
your process then? So if I go into your restaurant and I mention I've got an allergy to your waiter, what's the process of like behind the scenes to get your kind of like insights into obviously the cutlery? Do you cook it in a different part of the kitchen? What's that
Yeah.
process for you?
Well, sometimes it's hard to cook in a different kitchen. So we have pans and tools, but we all start off. Um, so we have an allergen pad that we use. If you can see that,
Oh, okay, yeah.
it's yeah. So we use an allergen pad that gives me. Oh, I think this is a better one. Um, so
Oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
so when you come into the restaurant, we use we use the allergy pad. So what I tried to do over the years is keep it simple, stupid, right? Kind of method. And as you know, communication is the most important part of what we do. So I in a busy restaurant, I don't want my servers, writing the allergen order on a pad, with all the other allergy or all the other orders, because now you're going to confuse it. So we use the pad, and then we also set up our allergen POS system so that when it prints to the kitchen, it's going to print it red, and it's going to tell
Oh,
me.
amazing.
So the allergen follows the meal. So if you tell me, like for this one, it was fish and chips, the allergen was avocado. So that guest who had an avocado allergy, the meal and allergen
Cool,
follows, right? So once the server goes to the table and you tell me your allergen, server's responsibility is to verify. I have a checkbox for that. And then we also get customers who, so if it's a party of 10 and I'm going to drop bread, but you're allergic, I don't want to inconvenience the other 9, but I am going to let you know that you're unable to have the bread, and I have a box there that I've gave you that information. And then from there, the server's responsibility is to go into the kitchen and talk with the chef. I have a box where whoever's advising you on that allergy meal, I have a box, right? Because I want to know who's advising. Then I want to know who prepares the meal. Once the chef says, well, you can have the IE tuna, but you can't have A, B, or C, then the server goes back to the table and lets the guest know the chef has said that you can have this, but we're going to remove A, B, and C, right? And then once that's done, server goes to the POS system. We have an allergen screen set up with all the top 9, plus some of the other ones we get. Like we get a lot of like onion, garlic, tomato, peppers. So that's on the screen as well to make it easy. Server punches in that order, prints to the kitchen, to every station in the kitchen, because keep in mind, you have your pantry station, your saute, prints to all the stations, and then the chef is responsible for overseeing, the preparation. A lot of times, most of my chefs and sous chefs, they just prepare the meal themselves so that I don't take you off your station. But yeah, and then when we go back to the table, once the meal comes in the window, we have an allergen dot. It says allergen, and put that on the lid so the server knows.
Straight away, yeah.
Yeah, and then typically the allergen meal either goes out first or goes out last. It doesn't go out with the other meal.
How many chefs have you got working underneath yourself at the minute?
Well, there's in the food department, there's over 200. Let's see, 11 restaurants, so that's 11 room chefs, and then times 2 sous chefs. So what? So 22. Yeah. So, and the neat thing is we've all been here 15 plus years. Yeah. So
have you got any Marines as chef who, with experience who now work in the kitchen?
No, we do have veterans. We do have veterans.
Amazing. Yeah,
I'm the only Marine.
Yeah. What advice would you give? Because I find it so interesting. I've obviously first Marine or veteran I've ever had on the podcast. I mean, what advice would you give to someone like a bit younger? Have you got any advice to like set them up for life, or like, I don't know, is or anything you've learned from your experiences which you've took forward in life, which you could pass on to the next person?
You know, I think a lot of times we don't do things out of fear, right? So we don't take that next step because, we're always afraid of the unknown. But I've been fortunate to, kind of, jump off that cliff, and, my parachute came open, and at almost 62 years old, I've done a lot of things. But I would say, whatever field, whether it's you going into the military or chef's field or whatever field, I would say, just do it. Because I think life experiences, we have ups, we have downs. When I do training, I always ask folks in the class, how many of you have ever had a bad day? And those hands will go up, but I disagree. I think we have bad moments in our days, right? And in most cases, those moments really don't last forever, right? So I would just say that whatever your goals are, make sure they're solid, put them on paper, read them. Like I have a vision board, right? So every year, different things I want to see in the year.
Yeah. Do you set goals then? Is it goals you would set for yourself on the vision board, or is it kind of like ambitions?
Yeah, you could call them goals. It's things that I want to accomplish, and if for some reason I don't, I just roll them over until the next year. So sometimes I hear folks say, oh, I didn't get that done today. And I'll look at them like, good for you, right?
Yeah.
Put it on your can-do list for tomorrow. So that's why I would say, if it's something that, you're passionate about, because I think, you have to have the passion. If you're passionate about it, it may not happen today, right? But don't take it off your list. Just roll it over until the next day or the next week or the next month.
Yeah, because I think sometimes, like, even like maybe this like day and age of social media, like you compare yourself where other people have got at your age, and I think it's probably harder now for the younger ones, because obviously they're constantly comparing, and like you said, it takes time, it takes years, to get to where you are now. Like it's not this overnight success kind of thing.
No, and I think that's where. So I used to teach at the Art Institute, and I always used to tell my students, when you graduate with your bachelor's degree, you are not going to go out there and be a food and beverage director, right? So you have to be, prepared for those things. But Dan, I think though, with the right, mindset, and just realizing that, look at Oprah. When did she become a billionaire? Wasn't like in her younger years. It was in her older years. And you see that with a lot of the actors, and Kentucky Fried Chicken. He didn't become a millionaire until well into his 50s. So I was So I would just say to those folks, that it took me. I had one of the best jobs in the world and had no bills, and still when I got in the Marine Corps, I was broke. But I just think that it takes time, and don't think that you're gonna be a millionaire overnight, because I love those stories when you see someone say, oh, well, I didn't become a millionaire until I was 50. Well, okay, well, I probably won't be a millionaire till I'm 63, but I'm on the way.
That's amazing. Yeah, because I think even with the podcast, like, I want it to be as successful as possible, and like I mean, I've got eight interviews this month. And like I said, you want the listenership, or you want the big sponsorship to help cover the cost, but like I say, it's not going to happen overnight. And I think for me, it's just that consistency. And like I say, when you're passionate about something and you've got that consistency to do it week in, week out, then hopefully over time it'll help. Do you love like teaching then? You kind of spoke a bit about like teaching the kids, and is that something which makes you fulfilled? Like?
Yeah, well, the Art Institute of Nevada closed down some years ago, but I did that for 9 years. But yeah, I mean, I think whether you're an educator or just the average person out there, I mean, you have a wealth of knowledge. Well, it's nothing unless you share it, right? Because there's always, when one teach, two learn. So it's always I think it's our responsibility, right? You have a lot of experience, and I know you're younger than I, but you have a lot of experience. Well, you got to give that away. And I try every day. I have one of my students who keeps in touch with me, and she has she's disabled, so there's some things going on. So I try to keep her on track, and she's a chef, and she'll sometimes say, "I don't even know why I use the title chef." I said, "Well, I do, right?" But I think it's our responsibility to share our knowledge, our experience, and we got to coach them up, because I come from a different time and place than you, but there's things that I know I can learn from you, and vice versa. And I think that's our responsibility.
I think that's why I love the podcast. I would say to everyone, just set up a podcast, because you would speak to people you would never ever speak to, like from all walks of life, from all over the world now, with obviously Wi-Fi, and obviously like everyone has like whereas before I think with the podcast you always thought you had to do it in person, but I think now it's so accessible to kind of reach people from all walks of life. And like I said, like it's amazing like to speak with yourself and hear about your experiences, and like you say, like by having these discussions, like hopefully I can grow and kind of learn from your mistakes or my mistakes as well, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's incredible. I was going to ask about your kids. Like how many kids have you got now?
Two. I have a daughter, she's 33, and a son, he just turned 28 in May. And my daughter actually has an allergen to avocado. So I didn't grow up like, I have a great fondness and appreciation for parents who have lived it from the birth to now. I didn't do that because my daughter, she acquired hers later in her 20s. But I have a good appreciation for those folks who, just like mom yesterday, and I was telling some of the chefs last night, you have a mom and dad who have to worry times 3 when they go out to eat, because it's not just Eli.
Stress and anxiety,
Yeah. So, and I didn't even ask you, Dan, do you have allergies by chance?
Yeah, I've got a tree nut and a peanut allergy since the age of 5, so I completely get it. Like eating out at restaurants, and I always come out with a red rash. Just because I get anxiety. Like, I'm like, oh, is it food safe? Is it not? And sometimes it can be really hard to distinguish, is it allergic reaction, or it's like a heat rash. Like it's I used to get it speaking with like new people. So sometimes in the podcast, like if I'm not spoke to someone before, like I used to come out with this red rash, and everyone's like, "You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Like,
See, Dan, that's the information what you just said, because for the layman person, right, who doesn't, like you get anxiety when you think about is your food safe, and I think those are some of the messages we need to share, because for that chef who thinks peanut tree nut, no big deal. But when you share that, well, you know what? When I sit down at the restaurant, I'm actually fearful of that meal before I, take that bite. I think those are the messages that we need to share.
Both your daughter and your son, are they chefs, or are they've gone on their own path in life? Like, what do they do?
No, they're my son works with a gaming company, and my daughter, she just changed jobs. I forget what it is, but no, they were. But no, just great kids, and you can only want for them. We always say as parents, I want you to be better than me, and I think they both certainly have that potential, and you just got to fan the fire and keep on going.
My dad always says to me, whatever I've done for you and your sister, you do for your kids as you get older. Which means like if he could help me out, like I think when I moved to London, for the first 4 weeks, I was on placement, so he helped me out, like living costs when I moved to London. But then I got a job and I could pay him back, and it's just like it's the little things. But he always drills that into me every time I see him. Like whatever we do for you kids, like you always do the same. And like you say, like you always want your kids to be better than you, or give them the opportunities you didn't have as well. Like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
No, it's been incredible to have you on the podcast, and honestly, I've really loved kind of hearing about kind of your military experience, and obviously being a chef, and obviously your kind of relationship with allergies, and obviously the book. If anyone wants to kind of buy the book on Amazon, would you like to kind of share the details of it?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a good project. It took me about 2.5 years to write it, but yeah, it's on Amazon. If you're in Vegas, we sell it here at the hotel, but Amazon.com. And if you visit Vegas, bring it with you, and I'm happy to autograph it for you. But it was a great project, and my whole goal was really to, because every restaurant is different, but I wanted to kind of give you tools, because I think it is daunting, but it is very, very doable. There's no excuse for a chef not to welcome an allergen guest to the table, because we can do it. It's just a matter of planning, and I think the book gives you
the tools,
starting point.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. And so yeah, thanks again so much.
You're welcome.
Have you got an Instagram or Facebook? If you like to share, have you got an Instagram page or Facebook?
Yes, but not
don't use it.
Yeah, you just have to search for me. But I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. So I'm not the techie guy. So to give you all my, at this and that, I don't have that. But I'm out there, and anyone on your podcast that I can ever do anything for, happy to. And you're welcome to reach out whenever you need me.
No, that's amazing. Anyway, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.